Svardim begin the beginning of Chodesh Elul. Our custom is we start blowing shofar and we start saying L'David Hashem Ori, but the minhag of the real Svardim is that they begin a month before and say the Shlichos. The minhag Ashkenaz is to begin, this year works out well, is to have a minimum of 4 days before Rosh HaShana. We can't jump into Rosh HaShana. That's why we had Ezra instituting yesterday to read about the Parashas Setochacha before, to get us ready. We read Parashas Bikurim to teach us about Hakaras HaTov. But the minhag of Shlichos is 4 days, so it works out Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. Because if Rosh Hashanah was 1 day earlier, we would have started Shlichos last night or this morning, depending on, there'll be a separate share. What is the appropriate time to say Shlichos? Is it at nighttime, after Chatzos, in the morning? That's a separate discussion. So, where's the 4 days come from? So, some suggest the 4 days, really during Aseret Shemei Tshuva, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that it's a time of Tshuva, and ideally there was some who had a minhag to fast all 10 days. However, there's a little problem with fasting all 10 days, because 4 of those days you can't fast. What are those 4 days?
Rosh Hashanah 2, Shabbat, and Erev Yom Kippur.
Correct. So, even though there is an old minhag of people fasting on Rosh Hashanah, that is a discussion in its own right, but as Alan said correctly, the way we pass and the way our minhag is today, we have a chiyuv suda. In fact, we assume there's an element of simcha on Rosh Hashanah as well. So you can't fast on Rosh Hashanah, and Erev Yom Kippur is an obligation, and Shabbos. So to make up for the 4 days we can't fast, we say Shlichos. So Shlichos is more in lieu of not being able to fast, so we say Shlichos. Others point out it's more of a self-introspection in terms of it's like a korban. Before you brought it on the Mizbeach, you had to do a preparation, you had to do a bedika for 4 days, you had to check out the animal. So too, we all have to do our own independent inspection on us. So that's our minhag Ashkenaz of 4 days. So the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch brings out an interesting halacha regarding Shlichos. The Ramah writes, "V'yesh mekomos," there are certain places, nohagim have a custom, shamispalo Shlichos mispalo kol hayom, that the one who leads the Shlichos services, so the custom is for that individual to lead davening the rest of the, let's assume, if you're doing a shacharis, so the one who did Shlichos should continue shacharis, perhaps even mincha as well. There's a discussion about Ma'ariv, whether the night before, assuming you know who's going to be doing Shlichos, but that's a further discussion with the Ma'ariv. But clearly, to daven shacharis and to daven mincha, that's the Ramah. And the Magen Avram says, what is this based on? Why is the one who begins to daven Shlichos, he should be the one leading services? So the Magen Avram tells us, the Hamatchil b'mitzvah omim lo gmar. We have a principle that if you begin a mitzvah, you should finish the mitzvah. So therefore, one who begins the mitzvah of Shlichos should finish it. So, I mean, it's true we have that principle, and we could go into that principle in a couple of minutes. But it's true that if you have that was the fault that Chazal found with Moshe Rabbeinu, that when he only began the mitzvah of carrying the bones of Yosef out of Mitzrayim, he never finished the job, and he doesn't get any credit for it, as the pasuk in Yoshua gives the credit for Bnei Yisrael for carrying the bones, not only for burying Moshe, but the pasuk in Yoshua says, and the Bnei Yisrael took the bones of Moshe out of Mitzrayim, even though we know physically if we had a video going, it would have been Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see the importance of starting a mitzvah and completing a mitzvah.
The bones of Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph's bones.
Joseph, you said Moshe.
Moshe carried.
Moshe carried the dog.
Yeah. So that's the principle. You begin a mitzvah, you complete it. So we'll come back to that principle in a minute. But before that, the question is the application here. I agree. If you begin a mitzvah, one begins a mitzvah, you complete a mitzvah. But what in the world does that have to do with davening Shlichos and then leading Shacharis as
separate mitzvah?
As correct as the Rav Soloveitchik explained and others in the Achronim. The Ma Shayechacha Klal, what is the principle of Hamatchil b'mitzvah Omro Gemar? What does it have to do with here? That's the din. You're doing the same mitzvah. Let's say Moshe Rabbeinu. You're involved in the mitzvah of burying the bones of Yosef. You have to finish it. But what does davening Shacharis have to do with the one who finishing Shlichos? That, as they point out, Hacha Halo es mitzvah shitchel kfar siyam. Very good. I started Shlichos. I finished Shlichos. Now what do you want from me? Instead of thanking me for doing Shlichos, you're telling me to continue now? You go on? You're a kafi tova. So what does that have to do? What does that principle have to do with anything? V'shar tfilas hayom shacharis, musaf, mincha, the tfilas mitzvahs v'fnei atzmam. It's a different mitzvah. So, and in fact, all year round, did the one who davened shacharis yesterday, did they lead musaf? In fact, usually you find someone different. So what in the world is it's the question on the Magen Avram. The Ramah said a principle that if one who says Shlichos, he should daven. So he might have a different reason why. He doesn't say why. But the Magen Avram who gives the reason that one who begins the mitzvah has to finish it, that seems to be a difficult reason to give, because what is finishing davening Shacharis and Mincha have to do with finishing Shlichos? So some point out that it was very difficult. Maybe it could be difficult now, but not as difficult, that we have Sidurim and we have Magzorim and we have Shlichos books. It used to be that when you do Shlichos, they used to wake up at 2-3 in the morning in Rosh HaShana, in the dawn, even before, and then you had to do it Baal Peh, and you had to do everything out loud because no one else had any books. Kind of like the minhag in many things. So it wasn't an easy task, like mixing my coffee without any stirrers. But it wasn't an easy task to go ahead and say the Shlichos. That's to eat. Eat food.
All right.
So.
Thank you.
But I want to be able to use my fingers after. So they point out. So therefore, it's kind of like a reward. Like it was hard to go ahead and do Shlichos and all that. So therefore, as a reward, okay, you know what? To give, like, you get immediate, we live in the world of immediate gratification. Okay, if you daven Shlichos, it was a big schus to lead services. At least people appreciated it then more. And therefore, you know what, we'll let you daven Shacharis if you do Shlichos. So that's kind of more of a pragmatic reason given. But Al Pi Lamdis, but doesn't really tell us more about the principle. So Rav Soloveitchik gave another answer. He said as follows, that he explains that the inyan of Shlichos hu k'hakdama l'chol tfilas hayom. He says Shlichos isn't an independent mitzvah, just saying Shlichos and that's it, but it's an introduction to the whole day's tefillah. Shacharis, Mincha, perhaps Ma'ariv, we'll see. V'tosefes hatfilah v'hatachanunim shel Shlichos heim v'kabolas kol tfilas hayom, and it's to help us with the tefillas of the day. Therefore, someone gets up and says Shlichos, and afterwards doesn't daven Shacharis. So actually, if someone got up and said Shlichos, and then he didn't daven Shacharis, he says even the mitzvah of Shlichos he doesn't get the mitzvah, because Shlichos isn't an independent mitzvah. Shlichos is an introduction to the whole day's tefillah. So if a person said Shlichos by itself and no Shacharis or Mincha, he didn't fulfill it. I wouldn't say he wouldn't fulfill anything, but he's lacking in his the mitzvah. Shlichos is the hakdama, is like Baruch Shamar, like Psuke de Zimra from Baruch Shamar to Yishtabach, is like an introduction to the Iker Tefillah, the davening of Shemona Esrei. In fact, there's a discussion. Let's say someone, Rabbi Kiva Eger raised, let's say you daven everything and you forget Ya'alav V'Yavo, or you forget something where you have to go back and you have to repeat Shemona Esrei. He discusses whether you have to go back and say Psuke de Zimra or not, because that's a whole introduction to the Tefillah. Maybe you can't just walk in and halacha we pass can know. If you forget this repeat Shemona Esrei, but the same concept. So the Rav says here that Shlichos isn't an independent mitzvah, it's an introduction to the whole Tefillah of the day. And therefore, Vimkei Mavur Hativ Dino Shel Rama. We understand the Psak of the Rama. The Kevin shall call Iker Inyanim Hu B'tzirav called Tefillah Hayom is to connect the Tefillah of the day. Therefore, you can't say Hamatchel V'mitzvah Omro Gomar, because the kasha was it's two different things. So according to the way the Rav understands, it's not two things. Hamatchel V'mitzvah Omro Gomar, you begin with the inyan of Tefillah, and that's why Shlichos also is part of. That's why in a Tainus, as we'll see, we have Riboy Tefillah, as we'll get to in a minute. But Shlichos is the beginning of the davening. It's the introduction of all the Tefillah Hayom. So one who began with the introduction also has to finish it. Masha Enkein, someone who davened Shacharis, has nothing to do with leading Musaf. Shacharis and Musaf are two-toe. Shlichos is an introduction to any tefillah you're going to do that whole day. So therefore, by definition, you say Shlichos, you have to finish the mitzvah by davening either Shacharis, Musaf, Mincha, etc. But of course, if someone who leads Shacharis doesn't have to daven Musaf. And in fact, we find this Yisod in the opposite way by Yom Kippur. Well, really, Tefillah Ne'ilah, that's the only day we do Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. But really, it has nothing to do with Yom Kippur per se. It has to do with the Tefillah, but it has to do with the Tainus Sibor. It has to do with a public fast day. So the Rav points out, he has a big chiddush as well. He writes, he quotes the Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah, V'chein tiknu Tefillah achar Tefillas Mincha, Samach l'shkia sachama, that on a fast day they added a Tefillah after Mincha, close to Shkia, close to sunset. In fact, that's why some are more makbid, that those, if you daven Mincha earlier during the year, on a fast day, some say it's better to daven Mincha later, because that will be like the place of Ne'ilah. Since we don't do Ne'ilah today, some think it's better to daven Mincha later. But either way, that's the takana of Ne'ilah on a fast day. And what's the purpose of Ne'ilah? It's a time of Asar, a time of need. We always ask for more prayers, we always ask for more things. Hare ta'mitzpalel dehachefsa shon Ne'ilah hi riboy tefillah. And that's how the Yerushalmi explains as well. And therefore the Rav points out the same thing. The one who leads Ne'ilah services on Yom Kippur, the last tefillah, Ne'ilah, the gates closing, whether it's the gate of the Beis HaMikdash, the gate in heaven, that's a separate share, but the closing of the gates, Ne'ilah, it has to be, the Rav says, it has to be someone who davened Ma'ariv, Shacharis, Musaf, and Mincha. And of course, it's probably a good idea to have someone leading Ne'ilah who's been davening anyway, but obviously the Rav is talking about someone who was sick and let's say he didn't not daven because he didn't want to daven, he couldn't daven. Even if that's the reason, the one who leads Ne'ilah has to be someone, or should be the one who daven, because Ne'ilah is a summation. Just like the Shlichos is an introduction to all the tefillahs of the day, Ne'ilah is on the other end. It's a summation, it's a summary of all the tefillahs hayom. And therefore, if I miss Musaf, I can't do a summation. Summary is of everything. Mishnah Torah, summary of the first 4 books. You have to be a summary of all the tefillahs. And therefore, one who did not, for whatever reason, even it was an honest, it was out of his control, he couldn't daven one in it. Obviously, because we have rules in terms of who should lead services. So obviously, someone who normally davens should be the one leading services. So that's a given. But even if someone who's a tzaddik, but he couldn't, something happened, he couldn't daven one of the tefillahs, he should not be leading the services, because part of the din Ne'ilah is a summation of all the tefillos. So that's what the Rav explained. That's the pshat in the Magen Avram, that Omrim lo hamatchil b'mitzvah, one who begins a mitzvah, Omrim lo gamar. You tell them to finish it. So we have, that's why, and again, different places have this minhag or not, that the one who, and in fact, it's a further discussion, even how far it goes. Does he override a yortzeit? Like there are other people sometimes who have to say in Kaddish. Again, different minhagim and different shuls, whether a person who leads Shlichos should lead so that's a discussion. When Omer Gemara, does he have to, or does he have a right to? So obviously, we know that a person could be mochel, could be mochel the privilege and give it to someone else. It's not usually something to, especially right before Rosh HaShana, Yom Kippur, all year round. It's not something to have a machlokas over, having a big fight over that. That you're missing the whole point of Shlichos and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. So obviously, the different minhagim, you work out every shul has a different minhagim. But that's based on the principle now. We understand hamatchil b'mitzvah, omer lo gmar. You begin the mitzvah, we say complete it. It's like we have a similar yisod like this in other areas. There's let's say someone is, let's assume the last time to daven mincha is sunset. I'm not getting into the Rishonim and the Hasidim who daven later. Let's assume that the last time to daven mincha is shkia, hachama. So let's say you only have time to begin mincha. Let's assume whatever time it is. If your mincha takes 5 minutes, you only have 3 minutes. If your mincha takes 30 seconds, then you only have 20 seconds. Whatever it takes you don't have enough time. You have enough time to start mincha and not complete mincha. So what should you do? Should you just, is that a case where, okay, I missed mincha and then I'll just have to do a tashlumin, I'll have to make up? Or do or could I continue mincha and say, well, since I started mincha in time, I could finish it? So that's a discussion in the poskim. So the poskim bring down that as long as you started mincha in the appropriate time, one has the right to, one could finish it even after shkia. What's interesting is what the source is. Some posts can bring an interesting source for it. It's actually a Gemara in Brachas, and Tosas discusses it. The story with Bilam, of all places. We find Bilam HaRasha, the wicked Bilam, that we know he was the one who Moab hired to curse and destroy the Jewish people. And in his idea, he knows about getting the Jewish people to be nichshol and znus and arayas, illicit relations. So it says Bilam, it says, "Go come, Navi Obi Yisrael Kamosha." There's no other prophet among the Jews who was like Moshe. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu was known as the Av HaNaviim, the father of all prophets. He was on the highest level of prophecy. But Bilam, also they say, as close as you could be, he also had almost the same type of powers as Moshe, except with Bilam, because of his midos ras, that took him away, his bad characteristic traits. Well, we know Moshe was the biggest anav. So it says, and one thing Bilam knew how to do, the Gemara goes into detail, and Gemara Brachas 7a, you can look up the rooster story, how you figure out, but we say in davening that God gets angry a moment every day, a millisecond, whatever it is, he gets angry. And Bilam knew exactly how to figure out that second, that minute. And Bilam's idea was, that's when he's going to curse the Jewish people. He's going to curse the Jewish people when God is angry. God is angry, then the Jews are finished. That's how he'll destroy Klal Yisrael. So the question Tosas asks is, how can he get such a big curse in such a short, in that millisecond, that short moment, how can he get it all in? So one explanation of Tosas is very simple. One word, kalem, destroy them. And God will know exactly what he means. Just like we have on the positive side, there's a tradition that at every bris milah, Eliyahu HaNavi comes down to help the child, to the refuah, to heal the child. So there's a tradition that at that moment, one can ask for anything they want. Ask for a certain need. It's always a discussion at what moment is it. The moment that the kid's crying right before. But whenever that moment is, the same concept. You can ask whatever you want. As long as you get it in, you start it. So here, kalem, because we know the Midah Tov is greater than the Midah Prunius. God is much more kind that He is strict, and therefore if it works on a kalem, on a destroying, certainly it works on good things. That's the first answer of Tosfos. But the second answer of Tosfos has ramifications to the halacha. He's saying, like we're saying here, as long as Bilam started the curse and that minute, as long as you started the curse, then you could finish afterwards. So we see, for certain halachas, we go basar haschala. We go by the beginning. In fact, as well, we have similar halachas. Let's say it comes up many times. Let's say Purim. Purim, many people start the meal later in the afternoon, and they go well into after Purim. Shushan Purim. So the question is then, could they say in the Birkas Hamazon Al Hanisim and be made and the sayings we say about Mordechai, etc. So, because since now you're davening, now you're benching, it's over. But you started your meal, some posts can bring down, we go basar haschol. As long as you started at the right time, you could finish. And that's why you have also, let's say when Rosh Chodesh falls out, or let's say forget about that, we do it every Shabbos here. We start Shalosh as well. I can't say we start Shalosh before Shkia, but maybe we should be, but we certainly finish after the Zman. So therefore, basically when we're davening in Shalosh Shabbos, technically speaking, would be over if we wanted it to be. We want to extend Shabbos, so could you still say Ritzeh? So again, to the post, as long as you had a Kazayas, really, you should have at least a Kazayas before Shkia, before sunset, so then one is permitted to say Ritzeh, because you go Basar Hascholas Hasuda, you go Basar Hascholas, you go by the beginning. So same Yisod here as well. This Yisod of the Ramah, of the Magen Avram, that we discussed. To summarize, we discussed the Minhag Ashkenaz is to begin Shlichos at least 4 days before. That's why it's perfect timing this year. We go straight from the 4 days of Shlichos into Rosh HaShana. Either the 4 days is because those are the 4 days we can't fast during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. So the 4 days we do Shlichos. Or 4 days is like we have to check an animal before we put it, needs a bedika before it goes on the Mizbeach. So too we have to do our own personal inspection. And then we pointed out the difficult Ramah. The Ramah writes the one who davens Shlichos, he should be leading services the rest of the day for Shachris and Mincha. And the Ramah Aram said, based on the principle, Matchil b'mitzvah omen lo gemar. Based on the principle, one who begins the mitzvah, you have to finish it. We asked, what is it to know so breda? What does beginning Shlichos have to do with Shachris and Mincha? So that's what the Rav explained, that Shlichos is the hakdama to all the Tfilas Hayom. So if you daven Shlichos, and then you went to sleep and you missed Shacharis, you don't even get credit for Shlichos. Shlichos is part of an introduction to all the Tfilas Hayom. Just like the Rav said, the reverse by Tfilas Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, the one who leads Ne'ilah service should be someone who davened Aravis, Shacharis, Musaf, Mincha, because it's not just its own independent tefillah, but it's a summation of all the tefillas Hayom. And that's what we see, the Hamatcho, the one who begins the mitzvah, Omul Gemar, and we said that's not just limited here, that we have the case that one who the Ramah brings down in Shulchan Aruch, as long as you begin to daven Mincha before sunset, you could continue. And based on the question with Bilam, we learned out that how could Bilam have time to curse the Jewish people in 1 second? So either he just says Kalem, like we have by Elio, in a good way, or as the Tosfos points out, as long as you begin in the right time, so therefore you can continue as well.